Hello, my beautiful loves. This is the Art of Contemplation. I'm your host, Sarah, and today we are jumping into episode 3 of my human design playlist from San Diego, California. If you guys follow me on Facebook, you'll know that a couple weeks ago I was in San Diego and I completely fell in love with this Airbnb that I found because of the view. And so today, this weekend, I was actually able to book the same place. This is actually the Airbnb host dog. She's so stinking cute. I still know. Okay, so let me show you guys what this view looks like. Check this out. So we are way up on the mountains overlooking city. She has such a gorgeous patio and garden. It's just really, really pretty up here. I'm absolutely in love with this place. So we were lucky enough to be able to snag this place again this weekend. So I wanted to continue to bring you guys information, continue to teach you guys about human design because, like I've expressed in the first two videos, this information has been wild. It has been completely wild to see it implemented in my life as well as my clients' life and see the results coming from it. So I've been wanting to share this information with you guys so you guys could have those same results. So today we're talking about authority. So last episode we talked about strategy. And if you guys remember, I told you that strategy and authority are going to be the most important parts of your human design is really understanding how your body was designed to operate on this planet and how it is that you were designed to make decisions. Because if you're moving into things correctly, then it's going to be much easier for you to apply the rest of what you learn inside of human design than it is if you are trying to apply what you learn in the wrong places after making the wrong decisions. So we learned all about strategy last episode. That was your strategy, your plan of action for moving into life. And today we're going to be talking about authority. So the authority is what chakra in your body was given the authority to make your decisions. Now, what's interesting here, and this is pretty common with all of human design, is what human design says and what we've been traditionally taught inside of our society and conditioned to believe is usually the opposite. So this lesson really blew my mind because the majority of us have been taught to make decisions using our head, using our mind. And yet, when we look at human design, there's not a single person that was designed to use their mind to make decisions. And that was wild to me because I was like, how many of us move into decisions because it's the smart thing to do? We innately know that we're not supposed to do this. And there's certain things that we've commonly heard, like, what does your gut say? Lead with your heart, right? Like, don't make a decision when you're too emotional. Like, we've heard these things before, and these things are actually taught inside of human design, but instead of us listening to this advice or really understanding which parts of these advice should we be taking, most of us will try and use our mind. What are the pros? What are the cons? What makes sense? What doesn't make sense? What's logical, right? And what I'm going to ask for you to do today is open your mind up to the idea that maybe it's not about logic. Maybe it's not about using your mind. Maybe it's not about the pros and cons list. And it is about honoring the chakra that is your unique authority inside of your design. So there are 7 different authorities that we have, and they are based on which chakra is the main authority for you. So we're going to do these in order of the authority or the chakra that holds the most authority down to the chakra that holds the least. So the first one that we're going to look at is the solar plexus. This is the emotional authorities. It's about, I think it's like 47% of people on the planet use this as their authority. So this one, the name of it is kind of deceiving because it's called the emotional authority. And so a lot of people will hear that and they'll say, oh, I'm supposed to be using my emotions to make my decision, but it's actually quite the opposite. When you have the solar plexus as your authority, when you're an emotional authority, what you should be doing is allowing yourself to feel the entire wave of emotions. What would happen good and exciting if I made this decision? What would be the horrible thing if I made this decision? What could go right? What could go wrong? Like the ups, the downs. Feel all of the things inside of the wave. And once the emotional wave has settled, meaning you're not feeling super high, you're not feeling super low, you're more even keel with your emotions, that is when you are to make a decision. These authorities should sleep on it. And here we're talking about big decisions, right? Like I'm not talking about like what should I eat for dinner tonight. I do recommend that for smaller decisions, you still take a couple minutes, right, to let the body kind of calm down, but or raise if it's really feeling low vibration here. But with really big decisions, it's going to be important for you to take your time, sleep on it, let that emotional wave ride out. So I want you to think about, when San Diego right now, I want you to think about on the beach. We were at the beach yesterday. My son, he's 7 months old, and it was Gabe's first time at the beach, and he just loved the sand. And while we were there, we saw these surfers out in the ocean, right? So I want you to think about when a surfer is out there and they catch a wave. Once they're on that wave, they can't change direction. They can't paddle out. They can't paddle in. They literally just have to ride the wave out. They have to stay on the board and just wait for the wave to carry them where it carries them. And then once the wave settles down and their board starts to, settle, then they can paddle back out, go in, jump off the board, switch drag, do all those things that they could do. So I want you to think about your decisions in the same way. Ride the wave of emotion, wait till that emotion settles down, and then make your decision. The clarity will come as the wave settles. Okay, the clarity is going to come. So if you're an emotional authority, I want you to think about, is there a time in my life where in high emotion, I made a decision, right? Like, oh my God, I have to have it. Made the decision in high emotion, didn't wait for that wave to come down. And then once the wave came down, I regretted it. I had buyer's remorse. I was like, oh my God, why did I do that? I remember I was so excited for it, but that was like a stupid decision. Like, why did I do that? That wasn't for me. Or vice versa, you're really, really low. Maybe you're really angry or you're really upset about something. You're like, I broke up with this person, or I cut the ow, I cut the friendship off, or I'm never gonna, and then he didn't like that when I went to that low vibe. And and then you make this decision, and then later you're like, man, that was the wrong decision to make. I will always remember I was doing a human design reading with this guy. He was actually a referral from another person that I did a human design reading. I love referrals because it just speaks volumes to, the impact, which is really cool. But this guy came over and he was an emotional authority. And he was telling me about how he was dating this other guy. And it turns out that the guy that he was seeing had like a long-term relationship that had been going on, but, because it was long distance, they hadn't really, connected in quite a while. And he started talking to him and he started to have these emotions, and they were hanging out a lot more. And they were never like physical because he already had that situation going on, but all the other parts of a relationship were there. The non-physical intimacy, the sharing, the spending time with each other. And so he was kind of hoping that eventually this guy would break up with his long-term, long-distance boyfriend and that they would begin something. I mean, I've been there before. I know a lot of people have been in that space before, and it's highly emotional situation to be in. And when the boyfriend came back into town, the guy said, like basically was like, okay, we need to end this. Like it's unhealthy. I want to be with my partner. And he did not take it very well. So in his emotion of feeling all sorts of things, horrible, abandoned, lack of control, of just being cut out of this situation without having any say or input inside of this decision. He was feeling all these low vibrations. He was on the low end of the emotional scale. He started to text this guy a bunch of stuff, right? I can't believe this. Why would you do this to me? Blah, 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 blah. Now, to somebody who's already made their decision, that just looks like, oh, like even worse. Like, I made the right decision because I definitely don't want to deal with this drama, right? And so all it did was it made that guy clam up even more. Now he doesn't even want to talk about it. He's like, I'm done, right? And so this is just making this guy feel even worse, right? And so he's texting, and he's calling, and he's like, why aren't you responding? And why aren't you answering me? And I just don't understand. And, you were the biggest mistake of my life, and I should have never trusted you. And, just spilling out all of this stuff, right? And so now he's, talking to me a week later, and his wave has kind of settled, and it's kind of, settled in that this is the end, and he's kind of processed through that, and he's cried a lot, right? And so as that wave starts to come down and I'm telling him all of this, he was like, "Oh my God, I totally should have never texted him. That was the wrong thing to do." He starts to get worked up inside of this wave again, right? Like, "I'm so disappointed. I shouldn't have done that. I can't believe I did this. I'm feeling all this guilt. I'm feeling all of this remorse." And he goes, "I gotta text him right now." And I'm like, "Whoa, you're doing it again." You went back on that roller coaster of emotions. You draw it back down. Now you're disappointed in how you handled it. And now you're like, "I gotta take action." You're doing it again. Emotional authorities do not take action. Do not make a decision when you are super low or super high. Let that emotional wave settle. Wait until you feel that middle ground. Let that clarity come, and then you can make your decision. Sleep on it, sleep on it, sleep on it. Okay, so the next authority that we have is called your sacral authority. This is what I am. I believe it's like 30 something percent of people have this. So sacral authority, this authority is not based on your emotions. This authority is based on your gut instinct, right? So your gut, I should say gut intuition, not instinct, gut intuition, right? Like you just sort of know. You just sort of know, right? And the way that some people have described this is like, and I can relate to this, when something is for me, I'll feel like my gut sort of expands. And as it expands, I feel so big, I feel so large, and I get excited about the idea of what it is that I'm about to say yes to. And when something is not for me, my gut constricts. It's almost like a cramp in my stomach where I just feel yucky and I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to do this." Right? And so for sacral, the way that I would describe it is it an expansive yes, I'm excited about this, I want to do this? Or is it a, "I don't know, I want to shrink and hide away because something about this doesn't feel right"? Now, what you will experience alongside of this expanse and the shrinking is a glottal response. It's literally a sound. So people with sacral authorities, they'll make like a sound. When something is right for them, they'll be like, "Mm-hmm," like, "Mm-hmm." And when something's not for them, they're like, "Mm-mm." If you're doing an like I'm not sure, that's a no for sacral. It's either a definite yes or it's a no. And so these sounds that we make is very interesting because I'm a sacral, my husband's a sacral, and we both kind of make these noises, but we were never really aware of them until I started to implement human design. And I was talking to my husband about it. He goes, "I don't do that." And I was like, "Listen." And I was like, "You just did it." And then as we would move on the conversation, I was like, "There you go again, there you go again, there you go again." It's such a subtle noise that we don't really pick up on it. And a lot of us have quieted this voice over time because people don't like when we make noises, especially when it's an noise. Like when they're like, "Here, try this," and you're like, mm-mm. Right? Like people don't like that. It's rude, right? And so you're gonna want to practice turning that voice back on if you're sacral. Okay, so all right, so that's sacral. So between the solar plexus, the emotional authority, and the sacral authority, it's pretty much most people. So you're either going to be one of those two, most likely. Then the other five, right? It's a very small percentage of the population, but we're going to go through them anyways. So we have the splenic authority. Splenic authority, it comes from the spleen chakra, and the spleen is one of the most ancient authorities that we have. This is a very animalistic authority. This is very much like survival. This is very this is very unique to like animals, right? Like this animal is going to go into fight or flight, right? Like it's instinct. Something doesn't feel right, move, right? Like the deer who, something doesn't feel right, run, right? And so when we are looking at splenic authorities, there's a few things to take into consideration here. Oh, I forgot to mention something about the emotional authority that I really wanted to touch on because I feel like this comes up with a lot of my clients. If you are an emotional authority, when you've ridden that wave, especially if you have an open head center, which means that triangle that's at the top of your chart here, it's open. undefined. Depending on what system you're using, it's either going to be white or it's going to be black. My bodygraph.com used to be white, and now for some reason they changed it to everything that's open is black, which I feel like is really confusing to people who are learning. But if it's open, your headspace is open, you're most likely to make up all these narratives when you're feeling the waves of emotion. And because you're making up all of these narratives, or let's say you have gate 56 and you're creating all these stories because that's a storyteller, the stimulation gate, then it is possible that you have already envisioned and thought of a narrative of, if I do choose this decision and it goes good, if I choose a decision and it goes bad, if I don't choose the decision and it goes good, if I don't choose the decision and it goes bad, right? And so you've already felt and envisioned all of these different things, which means that once you gain your clarity and you make your decision, you're still never going to feel 100% about it because you've already spent time fantasizing about making the decision opposite, right? So you're always going to have that little like, oh, but what would have happened had I? And that's okay. That's normal for emotional authorities. So don't fret on it. Just let your emotions settle and then make your decision inside of clarity and middle ground, and you'll be fine. It's okay to mourn that you didn't make the other decision, but don't let it get to you. It's just a natural part of the process. All right, so let's go back to splenic. So splenic is a very in the moment spontaneous gut reaction, and it's based on survival. It's only caring about one thing: is it safe to make this decision or not? Right now, because it is based on safety and situations change where they may have not been safe and then all of a sudden they may be safe, there is this dynamic of you like changing your mind, right? You may say no to something in one moment and then later on it may be a yes because whatever the threat was has now changed, right? This is a spontaneous decision. Make it in the moment. The other thing to mention about spleen is not a motor, which means it cannot tell you more than once. You only get once. So you have to be present. This is about a body response, right? Like your body tells you yes or no, right? Your body will tell you if it's safe or not. You're allowing your body to know beyond your insight, beyond your mental capacity, what is actually going on and whether it's safe or not. So let's just say, for example, that you want to go grab a coffee and you're like, "Ooh, I'm gonna go," and all of a sudden your spleen says no. Maybe it knows that there's an accident waiting for you and you shouldn't do this because it's not safe, right? And so it says no, and you're like, oh, okay. And then so you move around and you do something else, and not 15 minutes later, you're like, you know what? I really want that coffee. And all of a sudden, it's like, okay, go. And you're like, why? Why did it go from no to yes? Well, now whatever that danger was, whatever that threat was, it's now gone. So be okay with your decision making kind of changing. Be okay with it being spontaneous and in the moment. Be okay with it making zero sense to you or any other person, because we cannot sense the danger that our spleen is able to, like consciously. So just allow it to be what it is. Make sure that you're paying attention to it. You have to stay out of your mind. Like all of us need to stay out of our mind, but especially when you're a splenic authority, you need to stay out of the trying to figure things out and really land in your body, because your body is going to let you know whether it's safe to make these decisions that you want to make. All right, so after the spleen, I believe it is the heart, the ego authority. This is created out of the heart center. I believe this is less than 1% of people. And here we have the heart knows what the heart wants, right? This is like making decisions because it truly is what you desire. It is like what you desire, and you have an incredible willpower to like go after what it is that you desire. It may not make sense to anybody, but you know what you want, and you're going to make the decisions to get there, right? So follow your heart if you're an ego authority. What are we missing? Now we have the sounding board. Now, sounding board, you may see this called a bunch of different things. I've heard sounding board be called a mental authority. I've heard it be called a non-authority. I've heard it be called an environmental authority. I don't know why people keep renaming this authority, because I think that that causes some confusion. But essentially, when you have this, what it means is that you need to be you need to be communicating to a safe sounding board. So your environment is really important here. The environment that you find yourself in is going to be super important for you as a sounding board or mental authority, because what you're doing here is you're using your own voice. You're talking to somebody that's a safe environment, and as you're talking, the answer that you're looking for, the decision that you want to make, is going to become clear inside of that conversation. It's going to bounce back to you as you're discussing. That's what a sounding board is, right? So you're saying it, it's hitting that sounding board, and it's coming back, and you're hearing it in a new way, and you're like, oh, that's what I want to do. Very similar to a self-projected authority, which is also coming from your own words, right? But here you don't necessarily need the environment or the sounding board to bounce it back to you. This is an inner authority. And so it's more like it just comes out of my mouth. Like all of a sudden I'll just blurt something out and I'll be like, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And you're like, oh, where did that come from? Right? So it's about listening to yourself. You don't necessarily need somebody else there. So, for example, if I had a client who was a self-projected authority, I might tell them to vlog themselves talk and then listen back to it. And they should hear the clarity in their own voice about what it is that they should be doing. But if I have a client who is a mental sounding board emotional non-authority, again, why did we rename this a million times? If I had that type of client, what I would do is I would tell them to talk about it, but instead of talking about it to themselves, find a safe place, find a safe environment, find a friend who's non-judgmental or open-minded and allows you to just think out loud without projecting their opinion onto you, and have that conversation and listen to yourself in talking to them and hear back to yourself what you need to do. All right, so I believe that sixth or seventh one is our lunar authority. This is only going to be the authority of a reflector. So if you guys remember when we talked about the reflector types, when we talked about the strategy, reflectors, we're going to get into defined versus undefined energy, but essentially reflectors have no defined centers or chakras inside of their body. They are all day long, they are absorbing the energy of other people and they're reflecting it back to them. And so when we think about them making big decisions, we talked about their strategy was waiting a lunar cycle, a whole 28 days, because they have all this energy that they're being inundated with. Well, the same is true for making decisions. They most likely have picked up all of this energy from other people. And so when they're thinking about making a decision, they're thinking about, what this person or that person, the other person had said. Their headspace is full of all of these thoughts that are not theirs. Their spleen is full of all of these fears that are not theirs. Their root center is full of all this pressure that's not theirs. Their solar plexus is filled with all this emotion that is not theirs. You get what I'm saying? Like their G center is open with all this identity that's not theirs. They're so open, they're just absorbing all of this stuff. So their strategy and their authority is very similar. You gotta wait. You have to wait a whole 28 days. Let the moon do its job. Let it fulfill its cycle. Let it clean that energy out of you so that you can gain clarity. A lot of people see reflector as a shortcoming, but it is not. You have access to the most wisdom. You have access to more wisdom than anybody else on the planet. You cannot let yourself be overwhelmed by the fact that you're constantly absorbing things. You have to be in a state of allowing it and then letting it flow out, like the moons, like the cycles, like the waves come in and out, allowing it to happen. Because as you allow and you give yourself time to gain clarity about what is coming in, you get a better sense of the world, you get a better sense of your environment, of the people who live in it, of the state of the collective, and that wisdom is going to allow you to move forward so much more clear. So when we think about a person, we're going to take their type and their strategy and their authority, and we're going to put it together. And this is going to be a blueprint for how we operate in the world, how we operate, how we make decisions. This is the most important combination that you're going to see in all of human design, is understanding how those two things come together and relate. So for me personally, I'm a manifesting generator, so I am waiting to respond, and I am a sacral authority. So my gut is going to tell me what to do. It's going to expand when it's a yes. It's going to contract when it's a no. I'm going to have those glottal sounds, right? So for example, yesterday, I I was on Facebook. This girl made a post. Hey guys, I need some advice. What would you do in this situation? I was like, I wanted to respond to it so bad. I was like, oh my gosh, I got some advice for you. I was looking at the comments and I was like, these people's advice is trash, right? It was so crazy. She was like, what should I do in my marriage? And it was like, manipulate him, kick him out, leave and don't tell him where he's going, and let him have a taste of his own medicine. I'm like, what the fuck? It's like, let me guess, you guys all single or miserable? Like, do not take advice from somebody you would not trade places with, right? Like, don't ask your friend who hasn't been in a healthy relationship in 15 years what you should be doing about your marriage, right? So don't ask your broke friend how you should be investing or saving money. Like, it make sense. It didn't make sense. So these people were giving her horrible advice. And so in response to that, I was like, I cannot wait to share my opinion, right? And so I wanted to respond. And when I wanted to respond, I felt everything inside of me expand. I lit up and I was so excited to be like, yes, right now I need to go. When you are a sacral authority, I cannot tell you how powerful it is to respond when your sacral is lit. When it's saying go, 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 now do it. Right? Like there's something so powerful about doing it while the sacral is still lit. I have noticed for myself that if I wait too long, my sacral's energy kind of tones down. And as it tones down, then it loses its magic, right? It's not as potent or as powerful as when I operate when it is turned up. Now, my husband is also a manifesting generator with sacral authority, so that's kind of beautiful. My daughter is a generator, and she's an emotional authority. So she's waiting to respond, right? But she also cannot make decisions as fast as I can. She needs to sit on it. She needs to wait. She needs to ride out her emotions. A lot of times when a change is coming, let's say in our life, and this news happens, right? And it's like I'm responding to the news and my sacral lights up and I'm like, I'm excited for the change, let's say. And then I tell my daughter about it. She's like on a wave of emotion. Well, what? What does that mean? And I don't know. And I don't know how I feel about this. And it takes her a minute to like get through it. It's really important if you're gonna research human design to understand how the dynamics play with each other, with your children, with your partner, with your business partner, with your friends, because a lot of times your designs are different. And so you guys will process things differently. And for whatever reason, we always like to project who we are or our beliefs onto other people. And so just because it works well for you doesn't mean it works well for someone else. So at the beginning, before I learned human design, it was annoying to me that my daughter needed so much time to like manage her emotions before she could make a decision. Like that bothered me because I'm not built like that. I'm a non-emotional. And so it was like, why are you so emotional about this? Like, it's really not that big of a deal. Like, but to her, it was like there was just so much emotion in there. And now that I understand human design, I'm like, oh, that's her process. She was designed and built to feel that emotional wave, to feel that emotional wave before she moves forward. So totally acceptable. My sister, she's a manifestor and she has splenic authority. So if we think about her strategy, a manifestor is supposed to inform. That's her strategy, is to inform. And her splenic is in the moment I make a decision based on the safety, based on my survival. So the moment that she makes a decision, in the moment, she needs to turn on and tell everybody what she did. I'm not going to that movie. I'm going to that movie. I'm moving locations. I'm not buying that house. Like, make your decision in the moment based on safety, and then immediately start telling everybody what it is that you're doing. Don't keep them out of the loop. My one of my best friends, she's a projector and she's a mental, non-sounding board, environmental. She's the one of that has so many names. So as a projector, she's waiting for an invitation, but just because she gets an invitation doesn't mean she should always take it. She still has to make a decision about whether that invitation is right for her or not. And so as a projector, she's going to wait for the invitation, but once the invitation arrives, she's going to sound it out. She's going to talk it out with a safe environment here is key. Don't be talking to your crazy friends. Don't be talking to the people who you know are not stable. Don't be talking to the people who are negative Nancy's living in the low vibrations. Come talk to sound people. Be in safe environments where you're not going to be judged or critiqued or told what to do. Go to somebody where you can have that conversation and hear the clarity in your own voice, and then be able to make your decision on whether you're going to move into that invitation or not. And one of my good friends, she's a reflector. So she's just gonna wait. She's just gonna wait. She's just gonna wait. Just wait it, wait it out. So I hope this gives you guys some insight on authorities. I can't wait to hear how you guys are applying this and to hear some aha moments you had about your own strategy and authority when you start putting it into practice. So let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments so I can make some videos in response. I would love to, by the way, do some coaching videos on YouTube. I think that that's very powerful. Those are free. Just because I want the content on here for people to help see this in action. So if you are somebody who would like to get on Zoom with me and video record you working through understanding a little bit more about your strategy and your authority, maybe you have some life stuff coming up that you want to work out using your human design as a baseline, let me know. I would love to get on Zoom with you and discuss that, and then we can post it up on YouTube for other people to learn from. So like, comment, share, do all of the things. Thank you guys for your support. I love you. Be on the lookout for episode 4. We are going to be talking about defined versus undefined energy and how you can take that and apply it to your life as well. So love you guys.